Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, highlighting that homegrown impact for the Red Raiders this season. National narrative be darned, and entering college football postseason's new normal. Don't freak out. It's necessary.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's episode, I do want to get to a couple of broader conversations we haven't touched on yet this week as we've gotten the lay of the land with college football's postseason. And of course, we know about some really big national stories as far as some opt-out decisions being made. We can touch on those and what you got going on in South Bend possibly, but I really would like to focus in even more so on what's happened in the Big 12 Conference with some of these opt-outs and now league decisions as far as monetary consequences for those opt-outs. And we'll put Texas Tech in some of those hypothetical shoes as well, just to bring it on home a little bit. Thankfully, only hypothetical because sorry, boys, we're busy with a college football playoff coming up in just a few weeks. Also want to ask you, Chris, just as a college football fan, are we bracing for sort of a new normal as well that we're getting a taste of this time around? We'll get into some of that crystal ball looking and speculating in just a moment. But wanted to kick off our conversation today, Chris, with something that I think I want to circle back with you on more broadly, maybe later in the week. Tears of our enemies, reaction to our achievements, but a lot of that rooted in simply the fact that they feel like Cody Campbell, Joey McGuire, James Blanchard walked down the pick-a-player aisles and said, high price, high price, high price, high price. We want all those with the biggest numbers, yada, yada, yada. We get here as Big 12 champions. That is seemingly the national narrative. Now, there was some angle of not picking the high priced, but picking the best fit. And if they commanded a high price, so be it. A lot of times you met that call. But what I want to kick off our conversation today with actually is the most recent result we got, Chris, and that was another thumping of BYU and all the homegrown, give or take, impact that was actually felt there. Some of the guys I want to mention, were not necessarily like 806 natives, or maybe even they didn't start at Texas Tech originally, but they weren't part of this portal spree most recently that got all of this attention. Somebody like Jacob Rodriguez does qualify as that kind of player. Also, guys like clearly Baron Morton, Jacoby Williams, Ben Roberts, who we'll get back to on another note, Coy Aiken, Cameron Dickey, John Curry, and you could probably throw a few more in as well. Thought it was very fitting, and I was glad to see actually some of those who internally have been a part of this thing for a little while now contributing on the biggest stage in the biggest ways over the weekend.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot said and written about this whole thing in the last 9-10 months, even further back than that, I guess. And people have had different opinions, different story ideas, different angles that they've tried to – and the portal class certainly was something, right? 22-ish players that came in here – and some high profile, but the money has been written about and talked about, but what hasn't been talked about written about near enough, because it's boring. That's why it's not, it doesn't get the clicks and the eyeballs and all that stuff. It's like reading about a team's GPA. Yes, when you want to read, like if you're going to click through, it's like, hey man, we just had the best GPA. Nobody, cool man, good for you. Like nobody's like sinking their teeth into that. This is much along the lines of that, but it is very important to note, and a big part of why you're here, a big part of where you're going, that nobody has wanted to acknowledge near as much, And your QB with the curtain call, your entire group of linebackers, all of them. And yes, Jacob came from Virginia, but he walked on here. Okay. And he was a Wichita Falls kid and all those things. Right. So I don't view him any different than,
I don't recall many articles written about his arrival.
No, not at all. But your backups at linebacker, I mean, all that whole linebacking group is essentially homegrown. Your Brendan Jordans. I think you're basically the entire depth of your defensive line. Rigsby, Cofield, Esters, Amir, Nadore, Ofili, on and on, right? The rotational pieces of your defensive line. You mentioned Coy, your entire backfield. A guy that I think the head coach would tell you if he felt there was a slight on the all-conference team on offense, Jacob Ponton maybe had the biggest issue with a gripe there at right tackle, but because of the Utah guys, you're not. Caleb Douglas maybe had a big gripe. See, and that's so earmark Caleb Douglas for just 1 second. I'll come back to that. Stone Harrington, your kicker. I mean, so. There, much of your special teams, your coverage units, and all that, all of those pieces, these are homegrown pieces, and I think it's just Sheridan Wilson, who never gets enough credit for being a connector and a glue guy there with all of that. Then there's so anyway, I'll mention Caleb in a second, but there's a lot of story to tell there because I think it was fun for one, and we talked about this after the game in that special episode we did on Saturday, but it was really fun to see Barron get the curtain call.
Yeah.
And it was really fun for, of all the options, Ben Roberts to kick the door in and be the player that won the title belt and all of that. And because he's been under the radar a bit, maybe one of the most underrated guys on your team. And he would have been the first one to tell you before the season started, I struggle in coverage, try to get better at it. And people on the message boards, RedRaidersports.com would be like, yeah, man, he should have had 3 interceptions. The third one hit him right in his chest, but these other 2 plays, just special. I mean, the way he rotated and just all of it in his hands and all that stuff. And I will say this to you too. It is quite tasty that the best game he'd ever played prior to Saturday was against Oregon.
Oh, yes.
Was against Oregon.
First ever start
against a trio of NFL skill players and a whole bunch of other NFL folks. But, I think he had 12 tackles. He had himself 1.5 tackles for loss. He had him a forced fumble. And so
he hates the Ducks.
He's
finally getting another crack at these guys.
He's seen this before, but it's kind of a full – and I'll tell you what else.
To think about.
I'll tell you what else that Ben's game on Saturday did. It changes the narrative going into the offseason about your defense because you're going to lose some players off of this defense, right? I mean, Lee Hunter's not coming back. Your edges are not coming back. You're going to have to replace those guys. A.J. Holmes will be back, and Brendan Jordan will be back, and your corners will be back. But there's going to be a lot said about your group, and I think before it's like, man, I just don't know how they're going to replace Jacob Rodriguez, which is true.
Sure.
However, because of Saturday's performance, I think now it'll be like they have Ben Roberts back and John Curry back. That's the Big 12 championship game MVP. And so I think it does change the narrative a bit about your defense on paper and the mindset of certain folks, especially when you start adding some of these pieces that you're about to add to it. And
yeah, make no mistake, we'll be shopping again.
Yep.
Stay tuned. And that's the thing.
Are.
Like, I just wanted to say, first, today's episode brought to you by Omaha Steaks, and the holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it simple to do just that. And whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks is going to deliver handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. And every time you give Omaha Steaks as a gift, the reaction is going to be the same. Excitement when the box arrives and even bigger smiles when everything hits the grill. And you can always bank on top shelf quality with incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier than ever. Honestly, it's the kind of gift that brings people together and you don't even have to guess anyone's size. So save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks this holiday season. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use our promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. Like, I just wanted to say, we could not be where we are without David Bailey, Romello Height, Lee Hunter, AJ Holmes, Bryce Pollock, Cole Wisniewski, Howard Sampson, Will Jados, Reggie Virgil, Terrence Carter. You also could not be where you are without Baron Morton, Jacoby Williams, Sheridan Wilson, Jacob Ponton, Davion Carter, Caleb Douglas, Brendan Jordan, so on and so forth, all the linebackers. And I'm not here to dispel national narratives because I would first have to care about national narratives in order to make an effort to dispel them. But in our own little circle of this Locked On Texas Tech universe, it's fun to think about what we know to actually be true, which is it is not, just like it never was recruiting-wise, it's not, hey, give me the list of the 5-stars, and then we'll try to get all the ones at the top of that. It is more fit than anything. And then, yeah, you do have alignment, synchronicity to when you need to step up to the plate with whatever support or commitment, do that. And I'm glad they'll be doing that again. But when we talk about cherries on top with like a David Bailey or somebody, got to have something to put it on top of. And that's a lot of what we're talking about already. And that will continue to be a part of this. And I'm excited to see in the future, Chris, as we talk about beyond portal interests, as we already know, the high school pursuits, commitments, signees already gotten very interesting in a way that historically they have not been. And it's only going to get better, is it not, if you continue to have this proof of performance on the field?
Yeah. I mean, your recruiting is changing. Okay. And you're kind of leaning into more homegrown, but it's also, I want to point this out. I want to tie this back into Caleb Douglas and maybe somebody like Howard Sampson. Because of the state that your university is in, and I'm bringing this up for a reason, because of the state that your university is in, there's always going to be the lure of returning home. And the portal guy, like, man, I just want to get back to Texas. I mean, this is just the way it's been. Like, guys leave in football all the time and they come back home. They come back to, and a variety of other universities take advantage of that. You know, universities closer to the Metroplex or in South Texas or whatever. There's just, I go off and I didn't get an offer in state. I go off, I do well, and there's an opportunity to return home. Okay, this is Howard Sampson, Caleb Douglas. Maybe that happens with your next quarterback too. I don't know.
There got to be targets that could fit that bill. If I was out there wondering, I'd just get subscribed to maybe like something like the Matador Mob or anything else that might even give me a clue who might fit that bill. Hit the show notes. There's a free 14-day trial there, for crying out loud. You'd be crazy to not take the opportunity. What a great Christmas gift, Chris. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, let's go from one end of the spectrum, courageous, bold Red Raiders, to the other end of the spectrum, Chicken Little universe is what we are visiting next, because we got to talk opt-outs. Now, I know nationally Notre Dame is the story. I welcome any takes from you, Chris Level, on that front, but I'm also really interested in a Big 12 perspective here. as it relates to K-State, Iowa State, Baylor, for myriad reasons, I suppose, saying thanks but no thanks. The Big 12, if you haven't seen, now saying please do not pass go, do not collect $200 and send us a $500,000 check while you're at it. And again, the variety of reasoning, so case by case, may lead to some different opinions or takes on this. I want to ask you also, hypothetically, in a Texas Tech scenario, maybe what we'd feel about some of this, but just surface level, as you're processing what you've been seeing play out in the Big 12 Conference, including the league's response, how's it been sitting with you?
I think this is a sign of a bigger problem. Like the Notre Dame scenario is one thing. The Iowa State and who's the
K-State, Baylor.
Yes, Kansas State. Sorry. Yeah, Iowa State and Kansas State. Those are different. The Iowa State and the Kansas State scenario is such that you've got this coaching just mess internally. You've got people exiting, people entering, and it's just like in Kansas State's case with Colin Klein still trying to coach and all that stuff. I think this was probably a decision in both cases where it was left up to a variety of pertinent parties here, players included, leadership included, and all those things. Because the dirty little secret about a lot of these bowl games, if it's not a high-profile one, is it costs these schools money, okay? And so they're like, yeah, I'll pay $500,000. I mean, we were going to lose $1.7 million, so what's $500,000, as opposed, so we saved money in this way. But it having experienced it a little bit like last year, the Memphis one. Look, I'm always going to be there if your team is playing. If your team is playing, and I'm interested, I'm invested. But it was a weird dynamic, and you weren't all in with a lot of you were missing a coordinator. You were two. You had some different dynamics with your team last year. And you've got players playing for you that day that are already committed to go elsewhere. Weird. You've got a lot of opt-outs. Weird. But again, it can be a developmental scenario too. I mean, I think the argument is, man, you're missing a whole bunch of practices for your younger players. But what's crazy is, like, are those young guys even going to be there with you? Does the new guy want them? The Notre Dame thing was clearly, I'm pissed. I'm taking my ball. I'm going home. I want to make a mockery of the system, and that's what they're allowed to do. If they don't want to do that, I don't know if anybody's going to fine them for anything. But their AD claiming that the ACC made a mockery of them, and they've done all kinds of damage. They just were frustrated. But I mean, there's a sad part of that too, that there's a bunch of kids that had no idea they were about to play their last game when they actually did, and it's just now it's just over, so sudden. And I don't know. They had a chance to go play BYU in the Pop-Tart Bowl in Florida, which I think would have been a hell of a game, and they chose not to. So now it'll be BYU and Georgia Tech, but this will be more normal, unfortunately.
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly feel the call of the stadium. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. And with the money you save on tickets, you can then splurge on foods, drinks, gear, and more. Gametime makes it all possible. And best of all, Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. And if you're like me, you get tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, and that's why Gametime's Zone Deals is the go-to move, since it automatically picks the best seats in your section for you at the best price. And as always, you can get a view from your seat right there in the app. So before you buy, you know exactly what you're going to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed.
This will be more normal, unfortunately. Are the bowls and the things that we grew up with, and the TV ratings for these things are still very good. People still enjoy it. The 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, 1st. I mean, this is kind of what people do. Day sports. Some matchups are better than others. There are too many bowls. But with the portal being what it is, and the early signing date being what it is, and the coaching changes being what it is, this is going to become more normal. And that's just the reality of it. Expanded playoffs, which is what you're going to get at some point. What does it look like? I don't know. Expanded playoffs will only hurt it even more. And that kind of sucks, because it's like a playoff or nothing type scenario. And there is a purpose for this stuff, but there's just a lot of issues going on here, but those are my takes on this deal. I understood the reasoning. Don't know if I agree with it, but I also don't know all the moving pieces, and it's a mess. You don't want to go out there with like 45 kids and get your ass kicked, and it's like, what good did this do us? And we lost 1.2 million. So I don't feel sorry for the bowls, because it's a weakened industry as it is. But the league is on the hook for commitments to it, and so anyway, something will break. This is kind of another crack in the foundation here.
I hope it's just kind of a market correction, and we will lose some on the back end. We'll never be talking about 5 and 7 teams in a bowl game. Maybe we don't even talk about 6 and 6s. I don't know. I'm hoping that those who are able to survive it and are considered quote unquote possibly more premier, or at least top shelf beyond the playoff, maybe up their game in some way. Do you slice your boardroom in half and cut out that cruise in the summer? Possibly. Is there cash on the line? Are we in a player's era from an NIL standpoint with bowl games possibly in the future? I don't hate bowl games. I just don't care about bowl games in the sense that they were never a real postseason. They're kind of an antiquated format. But the only thing I'm really thinking here, Chris, and I agree with what you're saying about the variety of reasons why you could justify some of these decisions, at least in the Big 12 Conference. Notre Dame, you are sad and silly, and we pity you greatly. That is pathetic. But I feel for so many of those players, and not just players, but personnel, staff, whoever it might be, that are putting so much into it. And it is a decent culmination of a year. You know it's the end. And I would say if your program is stuck in a sad state of playoffs or bust being, that is only of your creation. Like, if you can't make something of this as a coach or whatever it needs to be, then that's your problem. Yeah. I bet, Chris, BYU is anxious to go out there and wallop someone in the name of how they've been slighted. Maybe I'm assuming too much. I don't know. But that would sort of be the narrative for me if I was just on the outside, one of those hurtful spots to be in, is I really want to get out there and I'm going to punish whoever it is and take it out on them.
Yeah, because it is there's a business aspect of this deal, like you mentioned, and that was something that was and has been discussed. It's in like player contracts, or was discussed about being in there, and bowls were talking about like, we'll pay you this much to play in our game and all that stuff. I don't know where that all is going to end up, but there's a cottage industry that the TV industry is living off of, and that bowls have existed for years. The bowl industry has grown too much. Okay, there are too many games. There just is, because
it was so good, right? I mean, that's why there's more.
Probably, but you've seen some that have had a hard time finding or keeping a title sponsor. Playing games at baseball stadiums, and just it's a bit of a novelty that's just kind of goofy.
The Bahamas,
the Bahamas Bowl,
to the islands, which is gone, I believe.
Yes, but they are, and maybe we're being too Pollyanna-ish here about it, but these are experiences for these kids. get to go to a place in some cases that they've never gone before. I'm not going back to Memphis, hopefully never. But it's a chance to see someplace new and experience some history and just kind of
probably an unusual opponent. Different
exactly, and outside the box that you.
It ain't got to be about touring Memphis or whatever necessarily. I get that, El Paso.
Yeah,
but it's a culmination of sorts. I think if you earn your way there, if you're an 8-4 football team, then go do it and make the most of it. That's up to you. But I just don't have a whole lot of sympathy for those that are like, well, now how can we even do it? Because it's playoffs are bust and we're so sad we can't even wake up the next day. Well, that's your choice, and that's pathetic. I guess from the perspective of really going out there as well and trying to impress upon somebody the great mistake they made by maybe leaving your team out, maybe that's Pollyanna-ish. Maybe at this point in time, that's more of a fan's attitude. And I'm just upset because they're not there, but they don't feel the same on the inside. But there's going to be room for it. I do believe it because it is a holiday tradition. And like you're talking about TV inventory-wise, we're all watching. You'll watch an empty stadium. But the TV ratings are not empty, and that's why they hang around.
Yep. And some bowl games do a really good job with the ones that the Texas Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Holiday Bowl previously. I mean, there's some games I've had great, and I know the players that have been there have had great experiences and all that stuff. But it just is a sign that this is a sport that is. The ratings have never been higher. The money being generated has never been more, and yet it's broken. And this is just another issue that is kind of a byproduct of some of the other problems that exist. Realignment is at fault. Greediness is at fault. The way that they try to decide who the champion in this sport, with the committee and the metrics is broken. But the bowls are going to suffer some consequences here along the way. And I just don't know big picture what that all looks like, because the next thing is the calendar, which Joey's talked about. We've talked about that too. The other thing is that what's the different dynamic that comes with conference championship games? And I think the committee was very careful not to send a message via Alabama that now we're not going to kick you out, because then we're just basically saying these conference championship games, you can be severely punished here, and they just make way too much money. So we can't do that. So Notre Dame, you're not in a conference. You didn't play in any conference championship game. Yeah, you won 10 straight, but you started out 0-2. You lost to this ACC team, and you got beat by this SEC team at home. And so, there you go. But it will – I mean, the Pete Bavacqua, I think is his name, he's squawking quite a bit.
Great name.
There's a lot of people, barking. And hey, what everybody needs to hear on a selection Sunday, whether it be for football or basketball, everybody that bitches, everybody that complains, everybody that whines and cries and and is finger pointing, they all could have fixed it by doing one thing: just win.
Correct.
And you didn't. You did not. So you all have yourself to blame. But people will yell and scream loud enough to where there will be something that gets adjusted here. Whether the thing gets expanded. Do I agree that Tulane and James Madison are in the tournament to decide who the best college football team? No. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Of course.
They are not.
Notre Dame, University of Texas on the sideline.
Yeah, but those two teams are not two of the best teams in the country. But the way that the rules are structured, and so we kind of, so I don't know, but it is going to be a fascinating, and this is exactly why they kicked the can down the road and extended the deadline for looking at next year's playoff into January, because they wanted to see how this played out. Won't that be spirited?
Well, sorry, Notre Dame. You've got every conceivable advantage known to a singular institution, but it didn't work out this way. Should have just won more. I am taking note of those who are stepping up the plate and just talking about that. I think Vandy's head coach is saying the same thing. No, we came up short. That's what it's all about. I am not a fan of Steve Sarkisian of the University of Texas, but I agreed with his comments as well. There's a right way to finish the season for your program, your players, your everybody. And so that's what they're going to do. Everybody could have one more. And I don't subscribe to the broken theory because it was not operable or a well.
It's always been broken.
Correct. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I think more so growing pains. If I look at my teenager and he or she needs braces, I'm not going to say this kid is broken. I'm just going to say it's going to suck for a little bit, but this is growing pains. So you'll get on the other side of this with something better. Maybe that's too glass half full. I don't know. But I didn't like it originally because we don't any longer get our news by wire or travel to games on trains. So I think we needed to do something better. And I think we're trying to do that, but it is coming with growing pains. I think we'll figure it out, though. It's no reason to backtrack. I know some have just said out there, college football doesn't need a national champion, so we don't need this tournament. And maybe that's a theory that some of you agree with. I don't, but I won't begrudge it if you do. There are room for premier bowl games, whatever that group looks like. And I will think we'll have a correction with that number. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm kind of laughing, Chris, that some are like, this just makes bowl games seem like exhibitions now. Hello, welcome to Earth. They always were. There was essentially one or maybe two in an AP era that weren't. But I'm glad we don't have to think about this in a tech term other than hypothetically this time around, right?
Yeah, because I really don't know, Cowan. And I'm glad we'll never find out. I really don't know what this was going to look like if you didn't get to this point and say you were playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl or the Alamo Bowl. Because I think, I mean, you were on the cusp. I mean, had you lost the game to BYU, you weren't real sure where your fate was. We think you were going to be in. Had you lost and stumbled another time, and you just weren't sure how this was going to play out. But I would have been real curious what your roster would have looked like. We will never know. Thank goodness we'll never have to know.
But there would have been some things to talk about, wouldn't there?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, you just don't, I mean, like, would it have made sense for David Bailey to play in that game? I mean, probably not.
I guess we'll never know, Chris.
We'll never know. You're right. But now this is NFL scouting tape now. Now you're going to go against you're actually going to go against some offensive linemen and some tackles that were on your radar a year ago for the University of Oregon, more than likely, which I think is interesting. Some guys that maybe we even mentioned their names playing the O-line for Oregon that maybe came in on visits or were being bandied about, and you ended up, getting some other folks. But yeah, now he'll be trying to get around those guys. But yeah, all comes full circle here. We went from Ben Roberts playing Oregon in 2023 to David Bailey going against guys that and then a big bowl conversation in between. How about that?
That's why you should get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, because you never know what's coming and you don't want to miss any of it. Let's grow together, and we'll do our best to not complain about labor pains, but someday just show you the baby. Chris, appreciate your laboring time here today and all the time. Enjoyed our conversation. We are going to circle back and get back to plenty more here this week. As also, do not forget, I know we're still in a football frenzy. Got a big one on tap we got to get ready for this weekend. So we'll be back to Texas Tech Hoops as we're looking ahead to an NCAA tournament rematch with John Calipari just a few days away. So plenty shaking this week and looking forward to it all, Chris. We will see you for the next one.
We love you all, people. Guns up always, and hope you're walking around the office wherever you are this week with your chest puffed out just a little bit more. And hopefully the sun, wherever you are, is shining just a bit brighter, because you two are a champion like Cowan and I are. You are a champ.
Correct. Words of affirmation. That's why you stay to the end of the show. Chris Level, upping production all across Red Raider Nation, I think, with that little spurring on wherever you may be today. Thank you for dialing us up. Appreciate the time as always. Get subscribed on YouTube, anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks to the Everydayers and the Matador Mob. Hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial. If you're interested in joining that crew, your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.